welcome to Kitchen Basics 101, where I teach you the bare bone basics as if you've never cooked a day in your life from the perspective of a mom. Super basic risotto. And so the very first thing that you should always do when you're making a risotto is prep everything first, because a risotto you have to stand and stir the whole time. It's super easy, but you have to stir. So you have to get all your ingredients ready before you start. If you guys like this, then I'm also going to make another version of risotto that's like a you don't have to stir all the time risotto. But first we're going to make just like the classic version. So I'm going to use chicken bone broth. But you can use regular chicken broth, chicken stock. It doesn't matter. You could do like a homemade chicken broth. Woo! I just love that we have access to all these great bone broths that are just like loaded with protein. So we need 4 cups. Now that I got bone broth all over me, I'm going to pop this on the stove and I'm just going to put it on like low heat to warm up while I'm prepping the other ingredients, because I want this stock, bone broth, whatever you're using, to be hot. I'm going to grate some Parmigiano Reggiano. Can you use pre-grated Parmesan you buy at the store? You can. Is it as good? No, but you can totally use it. You can use whatever makes you happy. You don't even have to use Parmesan. This is a flavor you don't like. I personally love Parmesan and pea risotto, so that's what I'm going to do. Looking for like at least a cup of Parmesan cheese, but I'm like a more cheese the better kind of girl. So I'm going to stop when my heart tells me to stop. I mean, the grater's already out and it's already dirty, so I'll probably grate even more. Then I have a bag. How big is this bag? They keep changing the size. This is a 10-ounce bag of peas. And I just got it out of the freezer so that it can get a little less frozen, but that's it. You don't have to do anything else. So we've got our parm, we've got our bone broth on, we've got our peas. I opened a bottle of wine. I'm going to use a cup of Pinot Grigio. You do not have to use wine. When I do the wine step, you could exchange this for apple juice. I've used cranberry juice, which is actually delicious. You could use just more broth. You don't even have to use this. This just adds like an acidity and a layer of flavor. So that's personal preference. What you will need if you're making risotto is you need arborio rice. Not all rice is created equal, and this is definitely not the same as regular rice. Now, Asian rice is close. But really, if you want to make risotto, you should use arborio. And what it is it's very short grain. The grains of rice are like almost ovals. They're not like let me try to hold one up. They're short and they're plump and they're fat and they give off a lot of starch. And the reason this is important when you're making risotto is that risotto, you stir and stir until it turns into like a porridge. So it's creamy. And that's why you need the arborio rice, because it's a very specific type of texture. Can you make it with regular rice? I guess, but it's definitely not going to turn out the same. So if you have a hard time finding arborio rice, then buy a short grain rice. Don't buy basmati. Don't buy long grain rice, because those are further away. But most grocery stores, like I just bought this at Sprouts, but they also have it at Walmart and Target and Albertsons and Kroger's and Smith's and wherever your grocery store. So it is pretty accessible to find arborio. It sometimes is a little bit more expensive. Okay, now we're going to start assembling. Don't worry, the pan is clean. It's just really old Le Creuset, so it's dark on the bottom. So we're going to put in a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil. Now at this stage, if you're an onion girly or a shallot girly or a leek girly, be my guest and put some onion in here. I am not, so I'm going to put a little bit of really finely diced garlic. You can chop up some garlic. It doesn't matter. This is just from my freezer. I just sort of do it once and then I use it all year long. But we're just going to saute up the garlic. You don't want it to burn. So you're just going to do it for a minute or 2 until it becomes really fragrant. Okay, after a minute, if you're doing onions, you're going to need a few extra minutes. Then I'm going to add 1 cup of my arborio rice. And we're going to toss that around and just get it toasted, coated in our olive oil and our garlic. We're going to toast it just for about a minute. This is just adds sort of a nutty, another layer of flavor. All this is being done on medium heat. We don't want it to be too hot. We're just trying to get a little bit of added flavor, a little toast, nothing crazy. And I do have my chicken bone broth sitting here getting hot to add to my risotto. Okay, everybody's looking fantastic. Now I'm going to add about a cup of white wine. I'm going to use a Pinot Grigio from Italy because I'm making risotto, but this can really be anything you want. I mean, this can even be red wine if that's the flavor that you want to impart. Again, it's great with cranberry juice, apple juice, or it could just be broth. that's fine too, okay? And you're just gonna give it a stir. And you're gonna wanna cook this until, if you're using wine, until you cook out the alcohol. So a couple of minutes. The thing about risotto is it's a lot of stirring. So you're gonna add the wine and you're just gonna stir and stir and stir until all the wine is absorbed. And I'm gonna show you what, like a less stir method of risotto that you can make. It takes longer, but it involves less stirring. But this is just a classic risotto. So stir, stir, stir until the wine is reduced. The best part about risotto is it's just like such a beautiful blank canvas where you can add all kinds of different flavors, right? It could be butternut squash, it could be asparagus, it could be red pepper, it could, like, whatever flavor you love, you could make into a delicious risotto. We're just doing a very basic, sort of classic. We're gonna do a Parmesan and pea, which is very classic. So you saw what happened when we first put the wine in and how much liquid there was. So you see how much it has reduced now. This is just a couple of minutes of stirring. This is on medium heat. And now that the white wine is pretty much all cooked off and all gone, and it's looking like a porridge, now we're gonna start adding our broth 1 cup at a time. Our wine's all absorbed. We're gonna take a ladle full of our chicken broth and we're gonna add it to the pot. Now this broth needs to be warm, so we're not making everything cold when we add it. And then just like the wine, you're gonna stir, stir, stir until it's all absorbed. So then once it's absorbed, we're gonna add another cup. So I'll stir and I'll be back. Even though risotto is a lot of stirring, and it is, it still can be on the table in 30 minutes. It takes about 30 minutes to make a risotto. And during those 30 minutes, you could be like roasting some chicken breasts in the oven. You could use a rotisserie chicken just to add some more protein and bulk to this if you want to look at it as a more complete meal. I think there's a lot of protein in here already because I'm using the bone broth and the cheese. But you know, you could have some salmon, some pan-seared salmon. This is still a 30-minute meal. It's just fancy and elevated and it feels special, but it's really super simple. Okay, my liquid is almost completely absorbed. Again, it's nice and thick. So now we're gonna add another ladle full and we're just gonna repeat this process until all of this broth is incorporated into all of this, just a ladle at a time. So I'm put a ladle in, I stir it until it's completely involved, and then I do it again. Okay, all of our liquid is absorbed. Now we're going to turn the heat either off or down to very low. And we're gonna add our Parmesan cheese. And we're gonna let the residual heat from this melt all of our cheese up. That's about a cup of Parmesan cheese. Now we're gonna stir in our frozen peas. Oh, she's starting to look like risotto now. Look at that. We're just gonna let that heat help just melt our peas into our risotto. Stir it around, let it sit for a minute or two. Okay, I gave it a little taste for seasoning. If you don't like peas, you don't obviously have to use this many peas. I really like peas. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Not too much salt because you've got a lot of salt from all the other components. But in my opinion, you need a lot of pepper. I'm gonna let it sit on low heat with the lid on just for a minute to let those peas warm through. Now the most important part, the tasting. I topped mine with a little extra Parmesan and some pepper. Oh, I'm so excited. A few too many peas for how much rice? Yes, there's too many peas, but I love peas. So I'm happy with it. I would use half the peas, like half the bag. So good. So magical. A meal in itself, I think. So simple, so basic. Now, like I said, you can sweeten this up by using apple juice or cranberry juice. Adds like a little touch of sweetness instead of the wine. This could be asparagus. This could be really any kind of like veggie. This could be chunks of roasted squash. The possibilities are endless. Delish.